So here it is, the 2025 Patriots schedule just released.
Filibuster, Barth. I got to put the article up on the website.
Oh, I'm going to read it off. here. The Patriots
We're multitaskers here at 985thesportshub.com.
At home against the Raiders. They will then go to Miami in week 2. Back-to-back home games against the Steelers and Panthers in weeks 3 and 4. They go to Buffalo for a primetime game in week 5. That is Sunday Night Football. They then visit the Saints in week 6. That's a 4:00 kick. The Titans in week 7. 3 road games in a row, a true road trip. You don't see that a lot, Dolph, in the NFL. They'll come home and face the Browns to close out October, their only home game of October. They then host the Falcons the next week. They'll then go on the road to Tampa November 9th. So they do have a late-ish game in Florida on there. They'll take on the Jets on November 13th back at home. That'll be off a short week. That's a Thursday night game. They then visit the Bengals the week after that. Thanksgiving week, actually, they're off Thanksgiving week. They'll play that next Monday, the Monday coming out of Thanksgiving weekend, when they'll take on the New York Giants on Monday Night Football, unless it's flexed. That leads into the bye. They'll then host the Buffalo Bills on December 14th. They will visit the Ravens on December 21st, visit the Jets on December 28th, and then close things out at home against Miami. That game is TBD because the NFL Week 18 every year, they put that schedule together in terms of the times of the games that week to try to maximize the good games and the good windows and what's at stake for the playoffs. So there you have it. The 2025 Patriots schedule. It's official. Dolph, your big takeaway from this schedule, if you are all set and uploaded there.
I'm not all set and uploaded.
All right, I'll give you my takeaway.
It is published, but I need to do the other things, the finishing touches.
So I'll give you my. I'll
keep filibustering, Barth.
I'll give you my takeaways on the schedule as Dolph gets that up on 985thesportshub.com, which again, you'll be able to find. Well, it is up right now. You can go to the website and look at it.
Go to 985thesportshub.com.
If you try to get there through social media, give them a second. But a couple of my big takeaways, you already talked about one. I think the Raiders are a great starting spot for the Patriots. And really those first 4 games. I think the Panthers could be a sneaky test. Bryce Young took some steps late last year, but there's a maybe 2-3-1 start in there. And then you get a real reality check in the Bills. 3 road games in a row is kind of wild. I don't remember the last time I saw that. That's rare in the NFL. And maybe like 2 road games by road game, or I think last year they had 2 road games, the international game and a road game, but like 3 true road games in a row. Soft underbelly, soft middle of the schedule, although that Bucs game maybe a little trappish. And then if they're in it, they're going to have a test down the stretch with the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Bills late. Couple other takeaways. I think they get the favorability there on the Miami split. And if you look at the teams with questions at quarterback, which for the Patriots is a lot of those AFC North teams, and then the Giants, those games are early. The teams that they face that don't have a sure thing at quarterback are early on. So they may get teams figuring it out at that position. The Giants is the exception, right? The Giants are late. I would think Jackson Dart will be starting by that point. But will the Saints know between Tyler Shuck or Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler? That may still kind of be in process. The Browns, you're kind of into it at this point. It's week 8, but where are they going to be at with their quarterback situation? Is that going to be Shadur at that point? The Steelers, week 3, that's the one I was missing. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? We don't know, but a lot of those quarterback teams kind of will factor in early. Like we might have some question marks at quarterback early on for the Patriots. They do get the Bengals later. That's a team that's generally better late in the year. They do have one Miami game really early. Miami is a team that has faded a lot the last few years under Mike McDaniel late in seasons. So they'll have to balance that, but it's not terrible. It's not too bad a schedule. The 3 road games are more weird than bad, but we'll see what the home road split looks like. We knew coming in they had a favorable home schedule. They need to clean up at home, but that will be another interesting test for them where they go on the road 3 times in a row.
Well, you just mentioned the home part, Barth. Like, they've been terrible at home the last few years. So, like, it is time for them to turn that around. They got such an easy home slate. And obviously, they got those late that got the road game against the Ravens. They're on the road against the Bengals late in the season. So it gets a little tougher on the road, especially in the second half. But yeah, they got to go, 6-2, 7-1, something like that in Foxborough. It's time for them to turn around that part of their schedule.
What any in particular games that are in weird spots for you?
Well, you mentioned the Panthers. Like, that's a game where I feel like that could be the trap game. Like the trap game to point to, because Bryce Young taken out of the lineup, put back in, And he looked pretty good going down the stretch of that last season. Like that was one of those situations where it's like, oh my God, they've killed his confidence. They've ruined Bryce Young. Now it feels like, maybe this is a viable strategy. Take him out for a few weeks, let him regroup, put him back in, see what he's got. Maybe Bryce Young is going to sort of flip the script on that sort of thing. And like, maybe they look good to start that year. Like maybe that's a different looking game after the first few weeks of the season. Maybe Carolina looks good. And like all of a sudden that game feels different going into it. But I did say trap game. So like maybe the Panthers aren't as bad as people might expect them to be, especially based on last year. And Bryce Young is still sort of a wild card as well as he played last year. But I feel like that could be the trap game where that's basically the definition of a trap game. Oh, they're going to win that game. And then, the better team is the Panthers. The Panthers show up on Sunday.
No, Bryce Young came on strong last year. So that's a fair point to bring up. And if he can carry that over, it's a good early test for Mike Vrabel's defense, right? You don't want to get got by Bryce Young at home early in the season. It's not quite the test that Buffalo is the next week, but it is, I think, a good test early on for them. I look at the trap game. I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For one, that's just a good team. That's a good team. It's going to be well in a season. They're going to be rolling. And
I feel like that could be a trap game for the Buccaneers.
You think so? Well, yeah. The Patriots are going to be going into a short week because they'll have the Jets the next Thursday. You got to go. It's another game in Florida, which we talked about has been tough for them later in the year. Mm-hmm. They don't have to go to Miami, but they have to go to Tampa. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's not a trap game because this is a defending division winner. Yeah. But I think this game is going to be tougher than people give it credit for.
True. Well, this is where I talk about.
And this is a really good test for Mike Vrabel's defense in year one.
Well, this is where I talk about the preseason strength of schedule thing.
Yeah.
I feel like
did we get the preseason?
There would have been a lot of years where I took that out of the post because it's not official yet. I'll add it back in.
Okay.
But this is one of those games where like if this was last year, they'd be there's no way they could beat the Buccaneers. No chance of beating them. What do you mean no chance? That's one of those games that's sort of up in the air for me where it's like it's the NFL. Anything can happen. I always have a minimal amount of games where it's like they have no chance of winning. I think most teams have a chance to win every Sunday. It depends. You have to be like way at the bottom of the league versus a team that's way at the top of the league for it to be really like no chance of winning. And so, like I said, even the Bills at home, I know that's Sunday night football. Like you said, they could be 3-1 or something. And that's a bit of a reality check for them.
The Bills playing at home, you're saying?
No, I'm saying when they play the Bills at home in Week 5
I think
on Sunday Night Football,
Buffalo, isn't it?
Oh, is it in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Okay, I got that mixed up.
Okay.
All right. Forget everything I said. No.
That's the first of that random 3-game road trip.
So I'm thinking I give them a chance against the Bills at home. Was the point I was trying to make. So I guess regardless of what I know it might be tough coming out of the bye.
That's the game coming off the bye. Well, no, they should. You have extra time to prepare. That should be like
Vrabel with an extra week to prepare. Watch out.
Yeah.
I guess.
Honestly,
we'll
I think they did relatively well with the placement of the divisional games because you've got the split with Miami works entirely in your favor. Yes, going down to Miami sucks with that heat and all of that, but you want that as early in the year as possible. They're still going to be, relatively close to the dog days of camp. Week 2, you can survive that. And then a Miami team that's been atrocious in the cold under Mike McDaniel has to come up here in week 18 in a game that maybe will have playoff implications. Who knows? With the Bills, they get one of those games, the home game off the bye. That's nice. That's a good get. That helps. At Buffalo, that's going to be tough whenever you put it on the schedule. I don't care. And then both Jets games are late, and the Jets are the Jets, and they usually only get worse as the season goes on. So those are, I think, 11-17, 11-16, right? It's one of those last games of the year, and then in week 11 on Thursday Night Football, they do have the Jets off a short week, but you kind of figure, Thursday Night Football is usually a divisional game. And it's at home this time. Their last couple Thursday night games have been on the road. So I think they did pretty well with the structuring of the divisional games.
Yeah, look, I think they should go 2-0 against the Jets. You give them a split against Miami because, week 2 at Miami is a tough one.
Right.
But I fully expect them to win that week 18 game against the Dolphins. And if they don't, hopefully that means that they rested everybody because they clinched a playoff spot.
They can be on the other side of where they were last year.
That's on the bright side of things. But I fully expect them to win that last game. But, give it a split with the Dolphins. On the high end of the optimism scale, you give them a split with the Bills, but they should beat the Jets twice. The Jets are not good. I've never had faith in Justin Fields as a quarterback. They've always been a mess. They got a revolving door quarterback. And so I think they should, what's that? That's what, 3-3 against
Even
the
if
division?
they go 3-3 in the division,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty good start.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good start.
So 3-3 against the division, and then be well over 500 in, the rest of the games on your schedule that aren't the Ravens or the Bengals. Like, I think all those other games, you look at the Bucks, you look at the Falcons, like those games aren't, I'm not saying that those are easy wins by any means, but those games are winnable. Those games should be competitive. Patriots should be competitive in those games. So, like I said, like you take 3 or 4 games out of the schedule and say, like, all right, you give them a loss for that one. Every other game, they should at least be competitive. And if they're going to be well coached, like we expect with Mike Vrabel should keep these games close. And then it's going to come down to Drake May and Stephon Diggs. And can they make plays on offense at the end of the game when it's close and they have the ball in their hands, they have a chance to win? Like, it's been a long time, Barth. Even going back to the end of Tom Brady when he had no weapons, like they even had trouble making plays at the end of games at the end of Tom Brady's run here. I go back to maybe the 2017 Patriots, where it's like you really had confidence in the quarterback and his weapons to make plays at the end of the game to win, especially those close competitive games. But I expect the games to be close because they're going to be well coached. And so we'll see what Drake May's made. We'll see if Drake May's going to take a step forward. I know what Stephon Diggs is. We know what Stephon Diggs is all about, especially, assuming he stays healthy.
Well, so it's interesting you mention that.
Okay.
Well, so just what I was going to say is, so they go to Buffalo in week 5. That would be the first week Diggs is eligible if he opens on PUP to come off PUP.
Ooh, that would be juicy.
So that at Bills game being early, because when he played the Bills last year, it was in Houston. So this is going to be his first game back in Buffalo if he's available. I think you really circle that now. And I know that there's been a lot of talk that he'll be ready to start the season, but I think you especially circle week 5 as like, if he does open on PUP, it's not any more than 4. Because that was the first game he was looking for when he got the schedule today. Where was that Bills game? Him in Buffalo in prime time. That's going to be a lot of fun. I really hope he's full go for that one. Even if he's like gets in week 1, I kind of expect there to be some growing pains for him early on, just because it's a guy coming off an ACL. Of course there's going to be. But if he can kind of build it up, like week 5 in Buffalo, there's going to be a lot of people betting Stephon Diggs overs, I think, week 5 in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football.
I think so. If Diggs gets the ball in his hands in that game, you're going to see him with a little extra spring in his step, I would say. That's a good reality check for me, Barth, though, because I have just been going on the assumption that they're just going to have Stephon Diggs. But there's always the chance that he starts the season on IR, PUP, whatever, and then he has to miss a few games to start the year. And so maybe that would dampen my expectations on the start of the season, because if you don't have your big wide receiver signing, you're sort of back to where you were last year in terms of who's Drake May going to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
And, he should be protected better. I feel like the O-line has been, they've improved the O-line. I'm not sure that it's a lock, like they're a slam dunk all across the board on the O-line, but they should be better, right?
Yeah.
Drake May should have a little more time to throw, but if he doesn't have Stephon Diggs to throw the ball to, like, you're basically in the same spot you were for most of last year, where guys are stepping up, like Kayshon Boutte sort of emerged as a viable receiver last year. DeMario Douglas started to make more plays with Drake May throwing in the ball, but like you start to have those questions come back up until you have Stephon Diggs back on the field. So I think that's a fair consideration.
So before you were on some before we got to Diggs, I want to ask you, there's going to be games tomorrow when everybody goes through the schedule that just it's a loss and everybody's going to write off as a loss. What's the one game on that list that you think is more winnable than people will give him credit for? You don't pick Patriots to win in that game, but if the games are going to be like across the board listed as a loss tomorrow, which one do you think? No, they have a shot here.
I mean, one of the Bills games. Like, do I have to pick one of the Bills? I'll give you the night game against the Bills.
Okay.
Like, you never know. Like,
that's going to be a pretty universal loss tomorrow. I think so.
Yeah, and I don't blame anybody that does that, but I wouldn't bet on it. But if the Patriots defense is
better,
much better than people, as good as people are expecting, and they are aggressive, they're getting after the quarterback. Can they make Josh Allen uncomfortable? And they have the 2 cornerbacks? Is Josh Allen gonna have like open receivers down the field? Like, if they can make that a tough game for Josh Allen, like that could be a Drake May coming out party for all we know. It could be that kind of game. And so that's the game I would point to where like everyone's going to pick them to lose, but I'm not totally, I'll give them a loss if you make me pick it.
which we will do coming up.
But if they're like 3-1 or 4-0 coming out of that game, and the defense is playing great, like I don't know. I'm not going to say that that's a lock.
If they're even 3-1 going into that game, that's going to be a ton of fun. That's going to be a fun week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they'll win the game, but like the week leading up will be a lot of fun.